Hey guys, this is Tom Box. Welcome to MST.TV. For today's video, we're gonna try to make your life a little bit easier when it comes to siding in the current format. We're gonna side to simplify the game state. Some of these cards were successfully used against me by my practice partners and recent YCS opponents, and they definitely gave me a real tough time, even taking a game or two off of me. So to some degree, I feel like these cards are ahead of the curve than what I expected to be at the event. So I'm gonna share it with you guys so you guys can also take advantage of these strategies. Before I begin, coming this weekend, Comic-Con at Home 2021 is happening between July 23rd and 25th. You know what that means? Konami has asked me to host a giveaway for them to give away one of these exclusive Comic-Con game mats, and this game mat is going to be iconic because it is featuring Yusei's ace monster, the Stardust Dragon. And thinking back, Stardust Dragon never got a sneak peek game mat for Duelist Genesis because sneak peek mats weren't really a thing until Raging Battle. So this is a little bit of a throwback, but who doesn't want this iconic Stardust Dragon in a playmat form? And just remember, you guys can also purchase this game mat at Konami's digital booth at Comic-Con at Home. Link in the description, and just remember these mats do sell like hotcakes, and if previous Comic-Con game mats were a thing to go by, I would have to say be ready for things to sell out really quickly. Now on top of that, you guys can also check out other awesome features at the Yu-Gi-Oh exhibits, and don't forget to check out the virtual token booth. And for those of you guys who are fans of dueling, don't forget that the entire event is going to be a 3-day remote duel extravaganza weekend, so you guys have 3 chances at winning out the giant card. There's a ton of duel links, things that you can do there as well. And for my personal giveaway, if you guys want to join the giveaway, you guys first of all need to be a subscriber, like the video, and check out the link in the description to join up. Alright, now back to the video. Now the cards I'm recommending today are aimed towards simplifying the game state, and they don't need perfect timing or anything like that, so that they are much easier to play, and it's easier than perfectly timing your hand trap to counter a certain play. All right, so these are kind of like plug and play type of cards, and here we go. Okay, my first recommendation are people having a tough time dealing with decks with back row that have high impact. Dengozaka, if you can forego your normal summon and play strictly based off of special summoning, can definitely return in dividends here, because the benefits of turning off the entire back row means that the game stays simplified where you only need to focus on the front row. Now let's start with Sky Striker. Obviously Sky Striker, unless they have Solemn Judgment or Effect Veiler, they are basically a sitting deck with only the real interaction of Ray bringing back a monster, I guess. That's the only thing. But outside of that, if they don't have that, you can definitely build up your negation to stop that card from coming back and even leave the Dengozaka on the field and keeping her alive. Now, against Tri-Brigade, Tri-Brigade, the Anapaloosa, it's a bigger monster, and they'll have Revolt in the back and maybe like Imperial Order. But consider this, even if the Appaloosa is at 24, if you normal summon out your Dengozaka, your opponent won't have anything to respond to because the traps are basically already stunned the moment you land onto the field, unless they have Solemn Judgment. It has to be Judgment or Warning because Strike doesn't work. So once you have turned all of those things off, you just have to bait one negation off the Appaloosa to reduce it back down to 16. Or if the Appaloosa is already at 16, just go into battle phase, run it over, and now you have one of the most simplified game states able to play. Your opponent has nothing that they can activate from the back row, and you can safely construct your board from there. Against Salamangreat, same idea, because their Salamangreat Roar doesn't really negate any summons. Eldritch are kind of stuck with no back row to play unless they have Solemn, which is pretty devastating. Dogmatica can't activate their Dogmatica punishments. There's just a lot going for the Dengozaka, which can swing the tempo back in your favor in a simplified game state form. Card number 2, I recommend this in main decks and side decks, Shared Ride. Literally, it is the pseudo maxi because a lot of the decks in the current format, they do a lot of searching and retrieval from the graveyard. And based off of that, this is a great way to skip your opponent's turn because of the sheer fear of being destroyed by card advantage. And like, what are they going to load your hand with? They are going to load your hand with maybe extenders. They can load your hand with hand traps, which means their combo isn't even going to go through. Even if you didn't have the piece, you could probably disrupt them. You can draw into an Ash and then draw into a Nibiru, which would probably really cripple them. That would just be devastating. One of the biggest fears of anything. And if you look at all the decks around, okay, Sky Striker, they've got Kagari, they've got Shizuku, Engage Area 0. They've got at least 4 angles of it, which can give you a 4-card draw. Like, what card can trade 1 card for 4? Not very many. Even Tri-Brigade that isn't exactly known for adding cards, but they have Bear Boom, which adds like a revolt, and they have to put a card back to the bottom of the deck, so it's a net plus on that one. Nerval and Tenki, those are the 3 angles that you can draw. Drytrons, I don't even need to really talk about. This is like the opposite of Drone Lockbird. Drone Lockbird is like they can't search and try to end their turn on a simplified board, whereas if you use Shared Ride is the exact opposite, where you are trying to load up your hand so far ahead to the point that even if they have 3 negates, 4 negates, it doesn't even matter anymore, because you'll just run right through them, trade card for card, and still come out on top. And that's where the real fear is at. And yeah, they have Ben 10, Ben 10, Ben 10, Alpha, Zeta, Eta 10, Medionis, tons of searches all round. Virtual World, Qinglong, GG, Lulu, Dragon Link, I'm pretty sure they have their own fair share of searches as well. In other words, there's just a ton of searching capability just everywhere. And if they want to add a card back from like the graveyard with Dragon Link, if you save it, you also draw a card for that too. So you can even mitigate perhaps the hand-ripping capabilities of Chaos Dragon Levianeer. Every deck has their own searching capability, which is why Shared Ride is just one of the most recommended cards, I have to say. Cards number 3 that I'm going to be recommending is going to be Kaijus, and also the God card ambassador of Kaijus, the Sphere Mode Ra. It's a non-responsive removal that can clean up the board pretty safely, and there's usually no response to any of this because it is a basic card mechanic. You're tributing your opponent's stuff for your cost of your monster. It's pretty good. And a lot of the boards that we end with, like Drytron, they have Herald of Perfection, Ultimateness that you can just tribute away. Tri-Brigades have the Appaloosa, which means you only have to deal with the Tri-Brigade Revolt, which is actually a lot easier. If you have this plus like Ghost Spell, the board's more or less fixed in your favor. Anyone that's running Dragoon can get their Dragoon tributed. Sky Striker Aces, remember when the Aces get tributed, they can't activate the Ray to revive because it was not really removed by your opponent's card per se, or battle or card effect. It was tributed by mechanic, which kind of sucks, not gonna lie, but it also turns off the entire back row. So you simplify the game state in 2 fronts where the graveyard does not matter, and the back row right now, maybe the only thing you have to worry about is the imperm or maybe a counter trap. So definitely a lot easier. Against Salamangreat, take away their Link monster, which turns off their ability to use Roar, and yeah, that's a pretty big step there. And not just Roar, but you can also turn off the Rage so that you don't have to worry about a pop too. In other words, you reduce the 3 card interactions they may have against you to basically maybe just 1. It's usually a really good thing. And the Ignister deck Island, that particular deck, they make the Towers S-Boss of the Arrival Cybers, just tribute over it, and it's a complete just turn destruction for them. So yeah, Kaijus, why not consider them? Try to use the Wind Kaiju in case someone is playing the barrier statue, but there are some decks that aren't able to play Kaijus, like Drytrons, unfortunately. But if you want to play something like a Kaiju for Drytron, you can consider using Volcanic Queen. Card recommendation number 4 in your side deck is Different Dimension Ground. It is very, very powerful to actually have this. I know this is mainly a going first option, but because it is chainable to removal, that's what makes it so strong. With the format being just loaded with Twin Twisters and Cosmic Cyclones and even an MST or 2, I have to say that having this card targeted for removal and you just chain it to force all monsters to be banished for the entire turn, that is going to lead to a turn skip on your opponent's end because they don't actually recur any of their monster resources in the grave. Looking at decks, Drytrons don't want to put any of their monsters in the banish pile because they need everything in the graveyard. Sky Striker, they probably don't want to put the Ray in the banish either, so they'll think twice before getting rid of their own Ray. And that part is going to be, well, pretty awful for your opponent. That's my opinion right there. Tri-Brigades proc all of their card effects by sending stuff into the graveyard, so essentially they don't really have a real turn to play either. Salamangreat, again, they want to load their grave. Their Salamangreat, Falco, their Foxy, their Jackal. All their cards want to hit the graveyard, and even Gazelle sends a card into the graveyard. So even if you don't successfully have a combo hand yourself and you open with this, you can buy yourself a full turn and get your turn back, and your opponent's board is, yeah, it's not going to look that great either. So definitely consider using Different Dimension Ground, even if your deck can't really play with the stuff in the graveyard, because if you build your board and you suppress your opponent from being able to build a board, that's usually good enough. Just beware of people playing Dark Hole. That's all I'm saying, but no one's really playing Dark Hole. Fifth card recommendation is a bit more targeted, but I just highly recommend it because Drytron is such a strong deck. Ally of Justice Cycle Reader. If you had the choice between a generic Crow or Cycle Reader, choose the Cycle Reader. Cycle Reader is the win button. I would choose a win button over a generic, you know, a 1-for-1. It's just not the same, because when you hit a Drytron that hard and you just need one card to really just swing the game in your favor, go for it. I would not try to strategize, you know, going for 1-for-1. You know, I'm going to take a page from Yishan's book here. Yishan said that if you're going to be playing something, why don't you just play the thing that wins you the game instead? And yeah, you need these free win buttons, and this is a free win button. And since Drytron is such a popular deck as well, I highly recommend siding it. And that's actually one of the reasons why I actually lost a match against my Sky Striker matchup, is because I got double Cycle Reader. I felt very safe with a Ghost Spell. It did not matter when you have a second one. And since Cycle Reader is not once per turn, it is also a tuner to make Halki Fibrax to go into the Effect Veiler, to go into Access Code, push for 5300. It just kind of has a little bit for everything, but honestly, it will also take care of, say, the Eldritch matchup, because the Golden Lord is also a light monster, so it does come in handy. I know it's for more specific matchups, but hear me out here. You just want that win button, and the win button will be worth it way more than just having a generic Crow that may or may not work. Now, for other cards that I want to recommend here, I'm just going to talk about them really briefly. You have Epidemic Eradicator Vibes for complete destruction of spell-based matchups, such as Drytrons and Sky Strikers. If you are playing Tri-Brigade, consider making a Shurig and just your opponent, just completely destroy them. Night Beam has been a suggestion against Tri-Brigade because you can also nuke out the back row pretty hard, and you either force double activation of something, or they get stuck eating the Night Beam, getting their Tri-Brigade Revolt destroyed. And they only have an Appaloosa, so you can't really do too much to stop you in the monster front. Anti-Spell Fragrance, really good control against a lot of the spell-based matchups. And once you establish control, you can definitely flip it against your opponent, even if you're playing Drytrons, which is silly enough. If you're playing against Drytron, you flip an anti-spell against someone, it's kind of funny, because it also stops people from using Dark Ruler no more against you, which is one thing that could be problematic, and you limit the options of what your opponent can do down to just basically monster effects, and that limitation is actually pretty brutal. And then Summon Limit is it's a pretty good way to simplify the game state, where you limit them to 2 summons. Sky Striker can only like summon once and then link. That's pretty bad. Drytrons, once they use Gamma, the game is like already like basically near the end phase. And a lot of decks just completely get stunned out by Summon Limit, because it's how current decks are running. They combo with a lot of tiny monsters to go to their big monsters, their big boards. Yeah, this is a very crippling card that just cuts a turn short. So those are the final. Well, and that's all I got for this video, guys. Hopefully this will help you guys simplify the game state a little bit and help you with your siding game, just so that you can make it a lot easier. I'd rather play the cards that are just a lot more impactful when you drop them, and you don't have to worry about your opponent like counterplaying you, because some of these cards, they just really don't have any counterplay, and it is that brutal of a card. Free win buttons all the way around. Thank you guys for watching. Smash that thumbs up button. Don't forget to check out the giveaway link in the description for the Stardust Dragon Comic-Con mat, and don't forget to check out Comic-Con on July 23rd to 25th. And that's all I got for this video, so I'll see you guys in the next one.